Introduction, Anatomy and Physiology. Introduction to the respiratory system. Welcome to our detailed exploration of the respiratory system. The respiratory system is vital for sustaining life, as it provides the body with oxygen and removes carbon dioxide, a waste product of metabolism. Understanding how this system works will give you a solid foundation for comprehending many aspects of human health and disease. The respiratory system consists of structures that allow for the exchange of gases between the air we breathe and our bloodstream. This system is divided into two main parts, the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract. Anatomy of the respiratory system. 1. Upper respiratory tract, nose and nasal cavity. The entry point for air, the nasal cavity warms, moistens, and filters the air we breathe. The nasal cavity is lined with mucous membranes and tiny hairs called cilia that trap dust and other particles. Pharynx, throat. The pharynx is a muscular tube that serves both the respiratory and digestive systems. Air passes through the pharynx on its way to the larynx. Larynx, voice box. The larynx is located below the pharynx and houses the vocal cords. It acts as a passageway for air and plays a role in sound production. 2. Lower respiratory tract. Trachea, windpipe. The trachea is a tube that connects the larynx to the bronchi. It is reinforced with cartilaginous rings to keep the airway open. Bronchi and bronchioles. The trachea divides into two primary bronchi, one for each lung, which further divide into smaller bronchi and bronchioles. These tubes distribute air to the lungs. Lungs. The lungs are the primary organs of the respiratory system. They are spongy, air-filled organs located on either side of the chest, thoracic cavity. The lungs are divided into lobes. The right lung has 3 lobes, while the left lung has 2 lobes. Alveoli. The alveoli are tiny air sacs at the end of the bronchioles where gas exchange occurs. The walls of the alveoli are extremely thin, allowing oxygen to pass into the blood and carbon dioxide to be expelled. Physiology of the respiratory system. 1. Breathing, pulmonary ventilation. Inhalation. During inhalation, the diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle at the bottom of the thoracic cavity, contracts and flattens, creating more space in the chest cavity. This decrease in pressure allows air to flow into the lungs. Exhalation. Exhalation is usually a passive process where the diaphragm relaxes and the elastic recoil of the lungs pushes air out of the lungs. 2. Gas exchange, external respiration. This occurs in the alveoli of the lungs. Oxygen from inhaled air passes through the alveolar walls and into the blood in the surrounding capillaries. Simultaneously, carbon dioxide from the blood passes into the alveoli to be exhaled. Internal respiration. This occurs at the cellular level. Oxygen carried by the blood is delivered to cells, where it is used for metabolic processes. Carbon dioxide, a waste product, is then carried back to the lungs for exhalation. 3. Transportation of gases. Oxygen transport. Most oxygen is carried in the blood bound to hemoglobin in red blood cells. A small amount is dissolved directly in the blood plasma. Carbon dioxide transport. Carbon dioxide is transported in 3 main forms, dissolved in plasma as bicarbonate ions and bound to hemoglobin. Mechanisms of gas exchange. Gas exchange is the primary function of the respiratory system, and it occurs in 2 main phases, external respiration and internal respiration. 1. External respiration. External respiration refers to the exchange of gases between the alveoli and the blood in the pulmonary capillaries. Oxygen diffusion. Oxygen from the air. We breathe diffuses across the thin walls of the alveoli into the surrounding capillaries, where it binds to hemoglobin in red blood cells. Carbon dioxide diffusion. Carbon dioxide, a waste product of cellular metabolism, diffuses from the blood into the alveoli to be exhaled. This exchange is driven by differences in partial pressures, with oxygen moving from an area of higher concentration, in the alveoli, to lower concentration, in the blood, and carbon dioxide moving in the opposite direction. 2. Internal respiration. Internal respiration refers to the exchange of gases between the blood and the body's cells. Oxygen delivery. Oxygen-rich blood from the lungs is transported to body tissues via the bloodstream. Oxygen diffuses from the capillaries into the cells, where it is used for cellular respiration. Carbon dioxide removal. Carbon dioxide produced as a byproduct of cellular respiration diffuses from the cells into the blood, where it is carried back to the lungs for exhalation. Control of respiration. Breathing is an involuntary process, but it can also be consciously controlled. The control of respiration involves complex interactions between the nervous system and chemical signals in the blood. 1. Medulla oblongata and pons. The primary control centers for breathing are located in the medulla oblongata and pons regions of the brainstem. Medullary rhythmicity area. The medulla oblongata contains the medullary rhythmicity area, which regulates the rate and depth of breathing. It generates the basic rhythm of respiration. Pneumotaxic and apneustic centers. Located in the pons, these centers fine-tune the breathing process by regulating the transition between inhalation and exhalation. 2. Chemoreceptors. Central chemoreceptors. Located in the medulla oblongata, central chemoreceptors monitor the levels of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions in the cerebrospinal fluid. An increase in carbon dioxide or hydrogen ion concentration stimulates an increase in the rate and depth of breathing. Peripheral chemoreceptors. Found in the carotid bodies and aortic bodies, peripheral chemoreceptors detect changes in blood oxygen levels. A decrease in oxygen levels triggers an increase in breathing rate. 2. Voluntary control. The cerebral cortex allows for voluntary control over breathing. For example, you can choose to hold your breath or take a deep breath. However, involuntary control will eventually override voluntary control if necessary. E.g., holding your breath for too long will trigger an involuntary breath. Common respiratory disorders. Understanding common respiratory disorders is crucial for recognizing symptoms and knowing how the respiratory system can be affected. 1. Asthma. Overview. Asthma is a chronic inflammatory condition of the airways characterized by episodes of bronchoconstriction, narrowing of the airways, which leads to difficulty breathing. Symptoms. Symptoms include wheezing, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and coughing, particularly at night or early in the morning. Triggers. Common triggers include allergens, cold air, exercise, and respiratory infections. 2. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. Overview. COPD is a group of progressive lung diseases, including emphysema and chronic bronchitis, that cause airflow blockage and breathing-related problems. Symptoms. Symptoms include chronic cough, sputum production, and shortness of breath, especially during physical activities. Causes. The primary cause of COPD is long-term exposure to irritants, most commonly cigarette smoke. 3. Pneumonia. Overview. Pneumonia is an infection that inflames the air sacs in one or both lungs. The air sacs may fill with fluid or pus, leading to symptoms such as cough, fever, chills, and difficulty breathing. Causes. Pneumonia can be caused by bacteria, viruses, or fungi. It can range from mild to life-threatening. 4. Tuberculosis, TB. Overview. TB is a serious infectious disease caused by the bacterium Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It primarily affects the lungs, but can spread to other parts of the body. Symptoms. Symptoms include a persistent cough, chest pain, and coughing up blood, along with systemic symptoms like fever, night sweats, and weight loss. Transmission. TB is spread through the air when an infected person coughs or sneezes. Thank you for exploring these important topics with us. If you found this session useful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with future content. Don't forget to share this video.